Welcome to Recross the Paths, where we celebrate the Cube community one conversation at a time. My name is Cade. Today, I get to sit down with Ryan. Ryan, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Cade.
I am a bit at a loss as to how to introduce you in a way. I feel you have such a varied and storied background in the Magic space and in the Cube space. You're like a tournament player, you're a designer, you're a host, you're a writer. How would you endeavor to summarize your own bio at this point?
I was honestly just really hoping you would grab the reins on that front. Like you said, I've been in Magic for so long, in a visible way for a long time, but even just playing, I've been playing for 23 years now, and there's no quick way to summarize my experience with Magic. I started playing Magic before I was an adult, and I'm in my mid-30s now.
It's amazing. Well, I mean, I guess starting there as a player, right? Like, you've been on the tournament scene a number of times. You have a couple of SCG Opens under your belt that you've won. Certainly some good finishes in other spots. How did you find your way into tournament play?
So tournament play, I started playing Magic at a time before Commander, if you can believe that.
That such a time existed?
Yeah, oh yeah. And kitchen table Magic was just kind of shuffle up with the cards that you like. And hopefully you can cast them with the lands that you like, which is, if you're into Commander, casual players don't like playing enough lands or, shelling out for mana fixing. So
it gets in the way of the other cool spells.
Exactly. I played casual kitchen table Magic for a couple of years, just was a fun way to get together with my friends in middle school and high school. But then competitive Magic really kind of hooked me, where there was mountains to climb. There was things to try to prove, ways to try to succeed, where certainly at the kitchen table, it was always kind of like a big fish, very small pond kind of thing, where it's not that hard to beat your friends with this really small group of people that the thing you have in common with is you're from the same small town, you go to the same school. And I've always had a little bit of a competitive side to me when it comes to board games. I like to win. And so that has always come out in Magic. And so tournaments were something where I got to start playing against players who were better than me and start learning more about the game. And Magic is so deep, there's always more to learn. And so I got really hooked on tournaments.
And you clearly did very well with that too, right? It's not like, I just liked to grind. It's like, no, you're actually taking home some titles. Yeah,
definitely on and off, and it was slow going for a bit. See, I had 1 year where I had 2 good tournaments, and it's that was a great year for me as a competitor, but I was never fully on a tear. But then also, at a time much earlier in my relationship with competitive Magic than I think a lot of people that ever get the opportunity to do commentary, I was balancing competing and doing work from the booth for several years as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So, did you have a preference toward one or the other? Was it oh man, I'd rather be playing? Or is it hey, there's no pressure, I just get to talk about the game I love?
It is a lot more comfortable to get a check at the end of the weekend no matter what. I'll say that much. Yeah. The highs of competing and just kind of the camaraderie when you have the dinner at the end of a day of playing with the other grinders. That social aspect is hard to top because you can meet the same people at the same event, whether you're working it or playing it. At the end of a day of working for 11 hours, talking for 11 hours is something that many people, and I also had this perception before I ever did it, it's a lot harder to do than you might think. That's a long time to be engaged with anything, and your voice gets tired, you get cranky, whatever. And it's a lot different to have the dinner at the end of that day than it is at the end of a tournament, where you either have your bad beats or your high highs and kind of all that comes together. And from the booth, you're just I want to eat, drink 3 glasses of water and go to bed.
Yeah, everybody wants to talk at dinner. And you're please no.
I have been talking.
No more. Well, and it's interesting. I think of the pressure of a tournament setting where in a game like Magic that's so high variance, you have to play well and run hot to succeed at a lot of those things.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of it, this is something that I've been thinking about. Do you ever play the game Slay the Spire?
Oh, yeah. I haven't played the second one, but I do like the first one a lot.
Okay. Yeah. The second one, I wasn't sure if I was going to get to it while it's still in early access, but I have been playing it. I don't like it when cards in the game change.
Right.
Kind of a boomer in that way. When I log in and my cards are different, it's a frustrating thing for me. But Slay the Spire, a lot of that is like, that game is very explicitly and loudly about trying to control variance and put yourself in positions to get lucky, because like your deck starts bad. Like that's true of any deck builder, like all the game pieces you start with. In Magic, like theoretically, if you know what you're doing, your deck starts good. And
yeah.
Even still, you're like playing to try to get lucky. But Slay the Spire, it's really loud. That's the whole thing. And so it's certainly a game that I recommend for anyone that's interested in competitive Magic. And I think there's also a lot going on with that game that informs cube design. But yeah, whether your deck is good or bad, whatever kind of game you're playing, trying to control variance by succeeding when you're unlucky or putting yourself in a position to get lucky is a huge part of any card game.
That's right. The fortune favors the prepared side of that equation.
Yes, exactly.
So what parts of that tournament sensibility carry over into how you think about cube nowadays?
A lot of it at this stage is nostalgia. I will
Sure.
not uncommonly design a cube where it's like, I used to like playing this in a deck. And so now the only way I could theoretically play it is in a cube. But another aspect that's always been something I try to translate and carry from competitive Magic to cube is that there are people in the cube space that will say things like balance is overrated. And every time I hear that, I'm like, ugh, I disagree with that so strongly. But it is true that not everybody cares about balance, and not everybody has an aptitude for balancing. And people also prefer different forms of balance. There's different ways to balance an environment. But I have always been a kind of person in competitive environments where I like to play my own deck and work on my own deck, and finding ways to be competitive, maybe off the beaten path, is something that I believe translates very well into balancing a cube environment.
So is balance a term kind of like tempo that there's like no proper definition for, or is there something actionable there?
I think balance is more actionable than tempo, but I think that you are hitting on something that is true of balance. There's more than two types, but I can just shine light on two kinds of balance, where a balanced version of gameplay is we could have two decks and both of them have a really narrow, like a very consistent output. They both do about the same thing every game, and that thing is comparably powerful. Another version of a balanced matchup, I could have a wildly inconsistent deck that sometimes wins on turn one and sometimes just fumbles and doesn't do anything. And you can have a deck that has a consistent output and does the same thing every time. And that matchup might be balanced, but the games that you win with your consistent deck and the games that I win with my glass cannon, they don't look competitive in either direction. But if we play 100 matches, maybe we both win about 50.
Yeah, so it's like the output is consistent or balanced here, but the way in which it comes about doesn't always feel that way.
Right. And so you can build an environment that's very volatile, but is still balanced in aggregate. But I think that a lot more players, certainly how many times are you going to play your cube? I have a lot more of an appetite for those two pretty consistent output decks and a similar range of power level. But you can definitely still be balanced in a kind of way that feels less so at a glance.
Does that sort of thing get compressed in a smaller environment, like some of the Twoberts that you curate?
I would say it's definitely something where the glass cannons become a louder issue, because with just a smaller range of cards, there's only so many different kinds of decks you can draft and so many different kinds of games you can play. It also becomes harder to have glass cannons and decks with consistent output. More likely, you are either playing those two decks that are pretty consistent or two glass cannons. And two glass cannons can be balanced in that same way, where, somebody trips all over themselves and doesn't do anything, and the other person has their turn one win or whatever. And again, this can be balanced, but then you kind of get into the more pressing issue of whether it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, like, is that even something you want to design for?
Right. And yeah, that's kind of thing about cube is like, it's not necessarily something I want to design for, but also if Black Lotus is involved, that's kind of the exact experience I want. Like, not necessarily the Glass Canyon, but I do want somebody to win on turn one some of the times. Otherwise, what's the point of dusting off the Black Lotus?
Right, yeah. Like, if we're going to play with this kind of firepower, You want to use
Right.
it.
That's what it does.
I think to cover one other thing in your background, beyond your tournament play, beyond some of your design things, you've also done a lot of writing and podcasting. You basically thought about and shared about Cube quite a lot through Star City Games articles, through the 540 podcast, and now with the 180. Can you speak to some of that? I know that's like a huge umbrella, but can you speak to some of what that's like to just produce ideas or like to share ideas about Cube for so long?
It's interesting because now I am very much kind of embracing myself as a creative, and I am recording every week whatever it is most exciting for me to talk about on the day that I hit record. Whereas both for writing and working on the 540, there's a lot that I put out that I'm proud of, that I had fun doing, but at the same time, similar to commentary, it's like, well, I got to check every time. So when it comes to that run, both writing and podcasting on the 540, there were weeks where I felt like I was running out of ideas or like I got another month and then I'm done. I don't know how I can keep doing this. But right now, before I even started recording by myself, I just kind of made a Google Doc of all the things I could talk about, and I have barely touched that document. Like, awesome. I have this list of like notes for myself that I may or may not ever reference again, but every week I'm just like, I'm thinking about Tarmogoyf this week. I'm going to talk about Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, that was a really fun conversation. A really fun episode, by the way. Just, exploring what are the thoughts that bubble to the top of the mind. Just thinking about the card. I think you said just like looking at the card on Scryfall and whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, and that's an aspect of having played Magic so long is I look at Tarmogoyf, and it has to be a future sight Tarmogoyf.
Of course.
There's other people's experiences with the Modern Masters Tarmogoyf. I could talk about the foil Tarmogoyf at GP Vegas or whatever, but that's not my story, and that's not the history that I find interesting. And that is part of the beauty of Magic, is that everybody kind of has their own perspectives to bring. But a big part of doing 180 MTG is I am very rawly bringing my perspective.
Do you think like that is easier to create without the like pressure of obligation or timeline or payment?
Yes and no. I guess the way I want to put it is that there's some validation that there's a down payment on. Like you know that somebody is already greenlit the topic when you are doing it in a professional capacity. And there's some weeks where I put something out. I mean, the Tarmogoyf episode is an example of this, where I'm just like, I know that I like this a lot. I have no idea if there's any audience for this whatsoever. And that can be kind of intimidating.
Well, and I imagine the difference in something like the 180 MTG, where it is just you, right? Like this is something that you are doing, I would imagine, for yourself and by yourself. Then it's not like you're beholden necessarily to what even a co-host might think about that.
Yeah, that was always something that was a little bit weird doing the 540 is at this time, after the podcast had ended, there was a couple times where Justin Parnell was traveling for work and he would swing through Minneapolis. So we have cubed now, but at the time of doing the show, we had never cubed together.
That's amazing, actually.
It's kind of wild. Yeah, and I still to this day have never cubed with Ryan Sachs. We generally were people with thoughts that largely lined up with each other's thoughts. But now and again, there'd be like this point of disagreement where it's like, I was just not prepared for any pushback on this.
It's kind of like, oh, no, this is just what I think. I don't need to defend it.
Right. I was kind of just hoping we would move on.
So really the reunion tour that you need is to get everybody in a pod together.
Yeah, for sure. It was time to actually figure it out. Famously, I'm now and again asked, what's the best way to cube with three? And I say, I have no idea. But I think it's Sachs, Parnell, myself need to sit down and hammer that out once and for all.
That's so good. Well, with all these opportunities to share in the background, Ryan, why cube? Why is that the thing that's anchored for you here?
The short answer is that cube is undeniably sick.
Yeah, podcast over. We did it.
There you have it, folks. So when I was really getting into competitive Magic, there's a phrase that used to be thrown around a lot. I guess I don't know how much it's part of the zeitgeist anymore, but the phrase was, Magic is kind of like chess plus poker. And that kind of is an aspect of there being mountains to climb and things to prove, is like chess and poker are much larger figures and hobbies. People, like if you are a chess grandmaster, people know what that means. And
yeah.
I think Tournament Magic kind of borrowed from the credibility of those games by using that turn of phrase, which is maybe why we don't hear it so much anymore. But then one day, this was over 10 years ago, so I don't remember the exact source. I want to say it was Sam Black is who I first saw express this, but they said Magic is chess meets poker and Legos. And I read great. That, and I was like, Legos are sick. I love that. I love Legos. I love Magic. I love that expression. And when it comes to competitive Magic, I think the parallels to chess and poker, bluffing, and technical sequencing, they're really loud. Not a lot to explain there. With competitive Magic, there's aspects that are Legos. You can build your own deck. Certainly with drafting, you're moving pieces around. But you're still kind of pigeonholed into using some pretty specific game pieces. So there's some customizability. But Cube is so loudly Legos. Like, when I roll up to game night and I bring out my Cube, it's like pouring the tub of Legos on the floor. And we're playing now. We're going to do something creative and fun. So the short answer is Cube is sick. The long answer is Cube is Legos, and Legos are sick.
This is good. I like this a lot. One of the things you are most well known for in your cube design space is the Twobert, right? I know other folks have explored this space, but your original recipe Twobert is kind of the critical text for how to approach two-player drafts. One of the things that stuck out to me about that is that in one of your earliest articles in which you introduced this, you describe yourself as being medium on two-player drafts. Like, is that something that you still hold to?
Not at all. It's really funny to me that I would have written that. And I do think that it also kind of speaks to a person that I was so many years ago, where, like, if 20-year-old Ryan told you that something was good, it might be the literal best thing that ever happened. Like, the word good had so much weight. Like, you couldn't just call something good.
Yeah.
Like, what if it's just average, Like, so if I said I was medium on two-player drafts, it probably meant that I liked them a lot. But now, I both in terms of my experience has changed and the way I describe things has changed. I'm very high on two-player drafts.
Yeah, so could you speak to that a little bit? Like, what is then less medium? What is more exciting about the small format?
So I do think that the right tool for the job is a big part of it. I think that designing for two and removing a lot of the noise, I think that when you try to draft a 360 card cube or a larger cube than that, a cube designed for 8 or more players with just 2, there are certain building blocks in your Lego collection, if you will, that don't make a lot of sense with only 2 players. I know that cube design and the way that we think about cube and kind of the more visible conversations and like the people that are active with like cube events and collaborations with very visible cubes, there's a lot less focus on archetypes than there once was. But for a long time, and it still certainly persists, and a lot of people do think about the cube this way, where like, we need enough archetypes for our players, and whether it's 8 or it's 10 with 2 color pairs, or you just want as many archetypes as you can fit in the box, that is a lot of extra stuff that is just not going to work for 2 players. And you can draft more cards, or you can try to handle it, finesse it in whatever way you try to finesse it. But there's just a lot of stuff in the box that you're not using when you try to draft an 8-player game with 2 players. I think about it like with board games. Like, if the box says play 6 to 8, you can maybe change the rules and play with 2, but you probably have more fun playing a 2-player game.
Right. Yeah, because it's like the word you said there a moment ago was noise. Like, there's just extra things that aren't going to apply in enough games to be worth inclusion.
Right. And I do think that a big aspect, I am very proud, and I stand by the implementation of what I call Minneapolis draft. That is by far my favorite way to draft with 2 players. And a lot of that is that draft format was designed around an environment that is designed for two. So this was thought of in tandem with the 180 card cube environment, and it is really tight on how many cards that you see relative to a lot of other two-player environments and how many total cards you draft. You only end up with 40 cards in your pool. And I think that is something that's important to scale with the number of players, or to change at least a little bit with different player counts.
And so for the folks who either are driving or whatever, can't take the moment to look it up, what does Minneapolis Draft entail?
Yeah, so it's a two-player format. Both players make 8 7-card packs. You open packs at the same time. You get 1 first pick. You trade packs. You draft 2 second picks. Trade back. You draft 2 more cards. So you now have 5 cards of the 7 drafted. The last 2 from every pack are removed from the draft. So then you just rinse and repeat. So you get 5 cards from your 7-card packs 8 times. You draft 40 total cards. Build a deck.
Nice. So then that also does something really cool where it preserves a lot of the hidden information in drafting too. Yes. Where you don't have like the full face up of a grid or a Winchester or a quilt.
Yes. And I guess it's unreleased at this point, but I've recorded an episode where part of what I talk about is that there's a lot of players that really enjoy hate drafting. And it is something that I personally do not enjoy. And it kind of detracts from the experience for me. And with 8-player drafts, you're discouraged enough from doing it because it's a bad strategy. But in a 2-player game, it makes more sense. It's more strategically sound. And I do like the hidden information to make it harder to execute.
Yeah, like there's this risk, especially with 2 players, like, oh, I see you are taking red cards. I should just take the best red card or the thing that allows you to fix and splash it. Like, it does seem like a much more impactful choice head-to-head.
Right, yeah, absolutely. You see a card that is the best red card in the cube, and you suspect your opponent is drafting red. And if it's me, you're probably right. Like, you can hate draft the red card, but having fewer total picks, only having 40 cards in your pool also kind of taxes that, where you should at least be entertaining the possibility to play it if you're going to draft it.
Well, I think this also kind of speaks to your sensibility about archetypes, right? Where you want things that are more generically valuable in more places, where it doesn't feel like, oh, this card only fits in a particular lane.
Yes. Yeah. Hate drafting in an environment where you take like a flagship archetype defining card that, especially if it just doesn't play in other decks, that is just costing you a pick. Like the cost of that is very clear. But when you at least have the possibility to play the card, the texture is different in a way that I find more satisfying.
In smaller environments, do you think there's a risk of games becoming, or drafts becoming, samey? And I don't want that to sound so heavy-handed, but in a smaller format where 2 people are playing presumably multiple times or more frequently than a larger cube, is that a risk?
So that is a common concern, and it is a risk. It is something that, for me, has not bore out in the actual drafts. And there's a couple things there. Is like, if you do approach the design from the perspective of trying to make the cards broadly playable, then there is so much more customizability in drafting and in deck construction, where the decks are more samey the more parasitic the cards are. But with only 2 players, it makes a lot less sense for the cards to be parasitic. If you do say, for example, this cube has affinity and it has infect, and it's like, well, that's just all your real estate. You have no more room for cards. That's what all the decks are going to do. But even with the original recipe Twobert, there's a lot like going on with positioning, and some of the game then does come, I can play like a red mid-range deck, a red aggressive deck, but then also in the draft and in sideboarding, and even in deck construction, as you lay your cards out, you can choose position yourself as more aggressive or more controlling. And if you are kind of competitively minded, like, me being someone that's always enjoyed winning at board games, even though I don't consider cubing to be very competitive, it is something where there's an itch you can scratch about playing against the other player.
I remember talking to Cade, actually well over a year ago now, about color balance in smaller environments, kind of like trying to push people together to make them kind of overlap in what they're drafting. Do you have a particular taste toward keeping all 5 colors in the game versus crunching colors down?
A fun fact about my long history with Magic is the first color-restricted cube on Magic Online was my Grixis cube.
Oh yeah, nice. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and that came at a time when it made a lot more sense to color restrict and specifically look at Grixis because green and white were still really finding their footing as competitive cards. That was louder in singleton environments. There's a number of things that are more or less true if you can play 4 of a card in a 60 card deck versus 1 in a 40 card deck. And of course, Cube doesn't have to be singleton. Cube has even evolved a lot since then. But to answer your question about color restriction, it's the kind of thing where I like trying to make my cubes generally as close to Magic as possible. And, I love Grixis, but there was always a part of me, and definitely having the Grixis cube of Magic Online, where I was just like, what if someone's favorite guild is Celestia? Yeah, I don't know why that would be the case, but these people exist.
I see you, Anthony. I see you.
And I was like, it makes me a little bit sad that I'm maybe diminishing their experience with Magic. I hope that there's something these people can enjoy with that. And kind of for that reason, I do generally try to play with all 5 colors. It's certainly something, especially now with how many more Magic cards there are and how much more appealing to play with the average Magic card is, that I do err on the side of just trying to play all 5 colors these days.
So you have designed many Twoberts. As we know, that's one of the things that I think you have positively impacted the tapestry of cube design and how you've pushed that as a way to engage. But you also design other stuff. Do you ever feel a little pigeonholed as just the Twobert guy? And I know you're not just.
Well, maybe right now.
Yeah, just by me personally.
No, I think that it's the kind of thing where I am really just free. There's nothing that I'm beholden to, especially now, just kind of doing a solo podcast, which I could just choose to stop doing at any point, right?
That's what I tell myself too, yeah.
I can quit anytime I want. When I'm working on a cube project, it's something I'm excited about, and I do have a couple 360 card cubes. For me, just kind of where I am at in my life and where my friends are, it's a lot easier to get together with 2 or 4, and so it just kind of is naturally the space that I am designing in. I do still enjoy playing cubes with more players. It's just so much harder to get 8 adults that are in bed by 9 o'clock together to draft that work full-time jobs than it is when you are awake at 2 a.m. hanging out at Perkins.
That's right.
It's just a different culture.
Do you see yourself exploring more of that kind of project in the future, or do you think this is a lane that there's a lot still to unpack?
I mean, there's infinite to unpack in both realms, right?
Cube, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, Magic is just infinitely customizable. Cube has so much space that even if you don't use a rules modification, we are still barely scratching the surface. I mean, a big thing is the mainstream culture is still just Powered Cube's the only cube that exists, and we're doing a lot more in our personal cubes and at the cube events. There's all kinds of cool new things happening, and there's rules modifications happening where new ground is being broken there, and there's just sub-infinites in the already infinite customizability. I do have a couple 360 card cube projects submitted to CubeCon, so I'm hoping at least one of those gets in this year. And
fingers crossed, yeah.
Right. And I also, I have another cube. I have 2 cubes kind of percolating that are in the 8-player space as well. One of them, I don't know if I'll ever build, might be better as a thought exercise. And one of them, we can get into this as much as you want. We'll see how intriguing you are by this sentiment. But it's a cube that I have found aggravating to work on, but I think might be satisfying when I get there.
Okay, I'll bite, Ryan. So, because there's the thrill of the hunt, right? There's something joyful about working through a problem and solving it. Kind of and I know this is gonna out me as a bad video game player, but it's kind of the Dark Souls thing, where you beat your head against something until you solve it, right? Or until you finally break through. Is that kind of what you're talking about, or is it aggravating in a different way?
It's in a different way. It's going to get like that, but right now it's in a new stage of aggravation that I'm discovering with this project. Where, and this actually might be in some ways relatable to somebody who's coming to Cube with less knowledge of the Magic card pool as a starting out point. Because part of this project is I am currently dredging through a Scryfall search of every Magic card.
Excellent.
And I'll tell you why, Cade. Somebody challenged me in the Cube Talk Discord because there's been some conversation about, hey, how come there's Magic sets that take place in New York? I can just go to New York. And somebody who's built some pretty creative stuff in the space that I hope to play someday looks really cool. Dan Schneider has been working on some like, New York movie-based cubes that all look awesome.
It's really funny. It's very good.
And somebody kind of challenged me to work on the cube that is just all things that could happen in real life. And so I'm doing a Scryfall search for just the most mundane Magic cards. And like, I am going through and I'm looking for creatures that are just a guy, or like, that's a bird, that's a dog. I am looking for spells that both are just verbs and have no whimsy in the art. So, like, if there's, like, a goblin that's a non-starter, and this Scryfall search is so taxing, it's so boring, because even when I'm looking at the cool cards, I'm like, stay on task, Ryan. Like,
no fun.
Yeah, I'm at E in my Scryfall search, and I just had to pass through every dragon and be like, don't look at the dragon. I know the dragons are cool. You can't look at the dragons. Dragons aren't real.
That's amazing. So, like, you have to restrict your interest to the things that are not interesting.
Right, exactly.
That's amazing. This is the one, I think your sketch title is like, it's the mundane.
Mundanity is, Mundane the Gathering or Mundanity are kind of the two titles I'm floating.
That's so funny. Well, and how amazing that Magic has a rich enough history that is possible. That you can look through and grab just a dog.
It's interesting, too, because, like, there's ultimately going to be some creative allowances. And so I'm looking at, like, how much... So if the creatures are... I like it when it's just a guy. Is just a guy with a sword ordinary enough? Like, swords are... that you don't see swords every day, so I don't know.
Well, it depends on what part of New York you're in, I guess.
Right.
Is this the sort of thing that... Like, is it kind of an art project, or do you envision it actually becoming... Like, where does gameplay fit into that experience?
Ultimately, the intention is to get these cards on the page, whittle down first the cards that aesthetically aren't clicking, and then really try to figure out, what does a deck with these cards look like? What is this format about? Is that fun? And is there a way to turn up the fun here? And this is the kind of thing where I can conceive of a world where I finish my search and I think, this is awful. I don't like any of this. But if I can convince myself that the gameplay is fun, there's some really nice moments. I think that something that is packaged as very boring, but then plays in a way that is it's self-aware and kind of funny in that way. There's conceptually something very appealing here. It just involves wading through a lot of drudgery to get there.
To get to the right drudgery.
Because if you're just drafting, like, I have done the hard work. The distractions are all gone. There's no cool dragons to make you think of anything else. You're just looking at the very ordinary armchair. And I do think that is some of the fun, too, is that once you go down this route, then you can make some kind of jokes with some of the card inclusions. Like, I would intend to include the card Definitely Not a Turtle. And this joke is so good because, you know, it is not a human. It is a mutant ninja turtle, but it's in disguise. But I really like the joke where it has like a death trigger or enter trigger or whatever, where you look at your top 5 for a land or a turtle card. And I'll tell you what, in this cube, it's definitely not going to be a turtle.
Well, turtles are pretty ordinary, right?
Well, maybe there'll be a turtle, you know, a little horned turtle hanging out there.
This kind of gets to the heart of the interest for me because it's the sort of thing that you listen to the pitch and it sounds kind of ridiculous. And then getting to this point that you're now describing of like, no, but there's something there, or there could be something there in terms of what actually happens when it gets to the table. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that's something that I've really tried to change my thinking or expand my curiosity, where so much of Cube, definitely in the culture of like we only play powered Cube, the Magic Online Vintage Cube is the only Cube that exists. A lot of the focus is like, is this card strong? Only strong cards are good for Cube. I prefer to ask the question, what would make this appealing? Because the context exists. Maybe it's not something that I can access, but the context does exist.
I think the mundanity is a good springboard into this idea. But like as Cube conceptually has become bigger, like you could be considering something like this in the Cube world. Is this more challenging or is this easier to talk about? Like, is this an easier thing to think through with a broader lens?
It's not easier, harder, it's not better, not worse. It's really just different. And I think that's something that your show does a good job of highlighting, is how many different perspectives there are in the world of Cube. Your episode that you put out this week, you were interviewing Jay, who was talking about the sticker cube, and I'm thinking, I don't really ever want to play that. That doesn't speak to me. That's not the kind of magic that I enjoy. But I love that that's there for other people.
And hopefully the way that's presented is that there's a beautiful validity to it as well. That like somebody has found something in it that resonates for them.
Yes.
And not just that project, but any other project.
Yeah, totally. And I think that that's something, too, where sometimes it is me needing to turn up my curiosity. Like when I first heard about the ball pit, I thought, at the time, I had not worked on any cubes with rules modifications. And I was still in the mindset that the one true infinite, like just with singleton, only using regular magic cards, we're barely scratching the surface, which is literally true, but that doesn't make the other spaces less valid, less compelling, less fun. And when I opened myself up, when I jumped into the ball pit, I had a blast, man. Like, that cube is a work of art.
No, but you're right. It's the sort of things that you don't expect. And I think, not to do too much navel gazing here, but I hope that's part of what comes through, is that some of the things you don't expect that you're going to enjoy resonate for you, or like that there's something that you get to experience that's new. I think back to a friend of mine in college who described the experience of trying garlic ice cream. That he was like, I didn't think I would like it, and I took a bite, and it wasn't what I expected. I took another bite, and before I knew it, I had finished the whole thing. And I still don't know if I like it. But and I just, like, that sticks in my brain of this kind of experience. It's like, I don't know. This may not be for you.
I've had garlic ice cream. There's a ice cream shop pretty close to me that I can usually get a scoop of something I never had before. And garlic ice cream was a little bit too close to vanilla for me. I was like, I like that. It wasn't weird enough. The ice cream that I think about a lot that I had was a Carolina Reaper mango ice cream.
Whoa.
And I was like, I still don't know if I imagined that or if I ate it or not.
Kind of a literal fever dream, I imagine.
Yeah, and it's just sick that somebody had that idea. That's very cool. And now it's been long enough, whether it happened or not. I think it happened. I choose to believe that it happened. I would have it again.
Well, the next time we're together and we're around this ice cream shop, let's go and ruin my taste buds forever. One of the things you do really well in your podcast, the 180 MTG, that I appreciate is I think you do a really nice job of balancing objectivity and subjectivity. That you nicely highlight, here's a thing that I would take to be the best way to do something, but you don't have to do it that way, and I'm not going to hold it against you if you choose to do something differently. Is that something you've always held to, or is that taken time to develop?
That was hard learned. I think that when I first started building cubes, there was a lot of ego in it for me. I had this attitude about, I want to build something that's better. I want to change the way that people build cubes. And I think about that now, and it's like, what a disgusting thing to think. Now, when I listen to your show, even if it's a cube that I don't like, I'm so happy that somebody else has found the joy in it. Just that perspective of magic being something that can be so many different things for so many different people is really what makes magic great. And the way that Cube gets to have a bit more community focus is all the better.
Ryan, do you think there are universal truths in cube design?
This is a great question because I do not know the answer. I have been thinking about this since you kind of shared some show notes with me. And something I really like about this question, I think the way that I would have answered this question 10 years ago would disgust me now. So I'm glad I'm not on the record answering this question 10 years ago.
I'll check the articles, but I don't think so.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a lot of tape to review, so, by all means, fact check me. But I think that the way I want to answer this question today, I believe that the answer is yes, but I don't know what those truths are. And I think that the one I can point to, I think that regardless of what you are intending to express, or whether you have any awareness that you're expressing anything at all, I think the universal truth of cube is that designing a cube expresses something. There's something personal expressed in every cube.
Is that kind of a restrictive idea, or is that like an empowering idea?
Well, I think that something about universal truths is a lot of them, when you get down to what is the most broadly applicable, it does kind of lose some meaning.
Right.
Because there's also kind of a lenticular nature to that as well, where what you're trying to express and what is heard by your audience, sometimes they won't line up at all, especially with the less intentional design. But even with the more intentional design, your audience just likes what they like, know what they know, sees what they see. And I think that it's limiting in the sense that it can be intimidating to hear that notion if you've never built a cube and think, I gotta express something. Like, there's a vulnerability in it when you introduce a word like expression, where it can maybe already be imposing to think about, well, how can I build a cube? I can't even play F&M. I haven't even ever won a promo. I've never won a booster pack, And this can be something that is intimidating about expression. That expression can be kind of a vulnerable thing, but at the same time, it is literally the entire human experience. And I think that once you lean in, it is really freeing, and it does just kind of open up this world. And like I have over 20 cubes together, like right now,
Yeah.
and they all express something, and there's still more to say. And I'm just one guy. I'm a guy that's pretty obsessed with this thing, but but everybody has at least that many things to say.
What an encouraging thought. There was a phrase you used when we were doing some pre-show. You described this interest with the artistry of cube. I just found it such a beautiful phrase, and I imagine it captures a lot of what we've just been talking about, but can you speak a little bit to that idea, like how that resonates for you?
Yeah, I think that you kind of had like a sub point to this question about subjectivity versus objectivity in design.
Right.
And the way that I want to answer that question is that I think that the artistry there has a lot to do with the subjectivity of what you're trying to express, and where it becomes kind of approachable and where the conversation can move into actually putting pen to paper, putting cards on a list, is that your goals are going to be subjective, and they will often be different from the goals of other designers. I talked about balance being something that I do value pretty highly. And some designers, they want to put sweet cards in a cube, and if it's balanced, great, but it's going to be by accident. And the subjectivity in that goal setting, I think, is a lot of where the artistry comes in. I think once you have a goal, and you're honest with yourself about that goal and how to implement it, then the design work gets a little bit more objective, and you start posing restrictions that they literally impact what you're allowed to put in the cube, what you allow yourself to do with the design. And then the space becomes more soluble is the wrong word, but the conversation can become more objective, where when it comes to what your goals are, and maybe there's a goal that you would have, but you hadn't thought about things in that way, your perception can change, your preferences can change, and that subjective nature of the goals you want to set can change. But then once you are actually working on it, how to best achieve your goal, given the parameters you have in mind, that's where it gets a little bit more objective. Which is kind of the same with art, where it's like, there is good and bad art. And a lot of it is just like good art is art that is earnest about what it's trying to do. It's the kind of thing where, certainly if you're thinking about it in the context of, you got to work for a living and earn your paycheck, you think, well, I want to make good art that makes people feel enough that they pay my rent, And it's like, that's not what makes art good. That's there's a lot of bad art that can do that, in fact.
Well, maybe a mercy of Cube, too, is that, as many folks have said, like, there's no big Cube money to be made, really.
Right.
But this is something that you almost necessarily engage with if it's of interest to you as a hobbyist. I would imagine you don't have to try to do it for somebody else to be satisfied or to be fulfilled in the exercise.
Yeah, the conversation does get interesting there in Cube, because I think that whether you opt in or depending on who you play with and how seriously you take this as an obligation, Cube is kind of fundamentally collaborative.
Right, yeah.
Where when you are actually drafting, the people drafting are part of the experience, and I don't want to make it sound more imposing than it is. There's a lot of things that can be intimidating about designing a cube, but I do take responsibility for people's fun when they play my cubes. I invite a lot of feedback, and you don't want to do one for one everything that people tell you that they would prefer, because at that point you get too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
You want to be aware of what your goals are. You want to be honest with yourself about how to achieve those goals and kind of invite feedback in that framework. But Cube is very much something where you start by expressing something, and then people experience it how they do. And after your first draft, sometimes what your vision for the cube might change entirely, just seeing how people engage with it. And for me, that's part of the fun. I think that could be discouraging if you had a really specific vision in mind. But that exploration, I think that a big thing for me when I talk about, having 20 cubes is that there's also 20 cubes I've taken apart,
Yeah.
and every time you build something, you learn something, and maybe you still have that thing you want to express, and maybe the cube that you built doesn't express it properly, but there will be opportunities later. You can just keep creating.
Yeah, and I think that makes Cube such a unique art form, too, in that you get to present it once in one way, and then receive feedback, and then change it and present it a different way, or more of the same way. I know there are other art forms that do that, but it does feel like it's in a particular channel of a, like you said, collaborative that many others aren't.
Yeah, it is interesting with Cube. Certainly, if you compare it to a musician, if you are part of a band and you put out recorded music, there's a deadline there for something tangible.
Yeah.
And then a song becomes what it is when it's time to make the media. And a cube has to be what it is before you draft it, but after that draft it can change. It can change in the middle of the draft depending on how you do it.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that some with songwriting at different times, where there's so many versions a song exists in, where it's the version that's in your head, the version you write down, the version that's performed the first time, the version that after you make the edits, and then the version 2 years later after everybody's sung it a bunch of times, and then you figure out what it was actually supposed to be like. In that evolution is continual, or it can be, depending on what it is.
Totally.
Are we getting too heady? Are we am I just wandering off and
At the end of the podcast, Kate and Ryan were just saying "whoa" back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fun to think about the theory, as soon as you get to the deep meta-narrative side of things. But I think that is interesting as somebody like yourself who has gotten to share in the cube space for so long, that you've seen so much change in the culture, that you're still excited about it and you're still thinking about it and there's still more to say. I think that's encouraging to me.
Yeah, and that's something that when I am preparing show notes and recording my show, is that I really try to temper that kind of perspective that I had when I came into Magic about wanting to prove something about me, where I would much rather demonstrate to anybody else that they can do something, that even if your vision for your cube is totally different than mine, I like that my work on Twoberts has kind of outlined a useful framework to build something. And it is charming to me when people ask me about updates in my cubes or like if I've tried a card because, I always try to say, if you put it together, it's yours. If you want to try the card, you're empowered to make it whatever you want to. Starting from a place of imitation doesn't mean you have to be limited there. And I really want to try to encourage people to build whatever they want to build. And my experience is limited. I've only done the things that I've done. And, I try to think about additional things and invite other perspectives and expand my own perspective. But to the extent that it's possible, I really try to, through the lens of what I know and what I can speak to, offer to people that this is just one way, and even where possible, try to suggest some possible alternatives as well, because there is no limit to the ways that you can do it.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, I know you have a platform on 180 MTG currently where you give continual thought and advice to people looking to build and design their own projects. What's on the top of your mind now that you would want to share with other designers as they're thinking through their own work?
When you present a hypothetical cube designer to me, there's a lot of different places a person can be on in their cube journey. So I have different advice for people in different spaces, but they all really amount to keep trying new things and keep expanding your perspective. If you've never built a cube, just build a cube. And I know that just build something is not very useful or actionable advice. There are a lot of resources out there. Absolutely listen to Maura Cage's show. I hate advertising for myself, but I have put a lot of stuff out that you can check out, maybe for some inspiration as well. But there's tons of other creative people putting cubes out. Check out a cube event near you. Whether you build something that's fully artisanal, you design it on your own, or you just put together something that is card for card a copy of somebody else's, that's a starting point. Just do something, just build something, and then it can grow from there. If you have a cube and you're not sure about it, or maybe all this talk about like expressing something as the wheels turning, just let that marinate. I think a big thing I'll say for people that are already building is like, when it comes to creativity, when it comes to anything, rest is part of the process. You never should and you never have to force it. Ideas are just going to click over time. It's just kind of like, if you're thinking about something when you go to bed, you'll be thinking about it when you wake up in the morning. You might have inspiration in the shower. It might never come. Not every idea is going to amount to something, but you really shouldn't have to ever force it. You're going to get more ideas. I'm saying this as somebody, I said earlier on the show, when I was writing and podcasting weekly for SCG, I felt constantly like when I put an idea on the paper, it was the last one I was ever going to have. And that's just not true. More ideas are going to come. If you're somebody who's very experienced in the cube world, if you've designed a lot of cubes, you've played a lot of cubes, I think the most important thing is to avoid firming anything you believe about anything, and to maintain the curiosity and the wonder that you've always felt about the game that drew you to it in the first place.
I love it. And I'll echo the sentiment that it's difficult to promote your own work, but I will say that I have sincerely enjoyed what you're doing on the 180. It's been encouraging to hear how you unpack so many of your own design choices, how you look at potential additions and exclusions. It's just a really good listen, and I would encourage other folks to check that out.
Yeah, I do really appreciate that.
Well, Ryan, I've had a great time, like I expected. Before we wrap up, of course, I do want to ask you one of my favorite questions, which is, if you could have any card printed as a promo, what card would it be and who would you have do the illustration?
All right, so I know that this is your typical outro question, and so I'm gonna preface this by saying, get ready to hear the worst answer to this question you've ever heard.
I love the confidence here. This is good.
I am confident that this will be the worst answer to the question you've ever heard. So I generally have a strong preference for the original printing of a card. It's just something about the way the game speaks to me and how I experience the passage of time, a card being grounded to when it first showed up. There's context where I'll appreciate a reprint, but broadly, original printing is what I like. I have one cube. I don't currently have anything about it. Someday we'll touch on it on 180 MTG, but it is a Twobert where everything is mana value 1. I call it the Onebert.
Of course, good.
Of course, you play 2-player games. It's not a solitaire cube. A lot of people ask me that. The One-Bird is not a solitaire cube. I'll tell you that much for free.
Stay tuned for the rest of it.
This is a cube where this started because one night we were just drafting it, and I think I had a Warhammer Swords to Plowshares in it because I bought those decks to get the cards that I want, and then I just hadn't gotten rid of the ones I don't yet. And Swords to Plowshares just ends up in a lot of my cubes, and so I just needed a copy, and I was like, whatever, let's put that in there. And then a friend of mine had this secret layer Swords to Plowshares that has this little duck guy on it.
Yes, the little bird, secret layer.
Yeah.
That is Heiko Mueller's art.
Yeah, it's just this silly little guy, and I love it. And he joked about swapping. I was like, yeah, sure. I have no problem with that. We can play with a little duck guy. And progressively, I have swapped more and more cards. Because everything has mana value 1, the complexity in this cube is pretty low. So a loud card frame, weird art, it fits better there. It's not really going to distract from the pretty basic gameplay. So I have progressively just grabbed more weird printings and odd secret layers. And so my answer to your question, this week, I think, or recently, they announced that there is I think it's called Cats Are the Best secret layer.
That is true, yes.
And they have teased some Garfield art. All right, so
Ryan,
my artist,
where are we going?
my artist is Jim Davis, not the professional Magic player, Jim Davis, the cartoonist, the primary illustrator of Garfield and Friends. I would like Jim Davis to illustrate Wild the Coddle, but it's Garfield pouncing on the lasagna. And if this card is not in this secret layer, I will consider the product a colossal failure.
The troubling part of this, Ryan, is that my fear is that this is very doable. I feel like a well-placed email could end you up with exactly what you want here.
Yeah, I think I want to encourage people to dream big, but it's also good to have healthy and achievable goals.
Wild Nicodle by Jim Davis. I love it. Ryan, what a treat, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, to guide us through so many of these thoughts, and for contributing on such a regular basis to the community, for providing the resources to help people along in their journey. Certainly, like I said, people should go listen to 180 MTG, available anywhere fine podcasts are available, I suppose. But if folks want to follow up with more of what you're working on, help support you, what are the best ways to do that?
Yeah, so I'm a little less visible than I have been in years past. I am active on Blue Sky if you're into social media, Ryan Overdrive at bluesky.social, however those weird handles work. I do lurk in the Cube Talk Discord. If you tag me there, I'll see it. If you don't, I probably won't. My Cube Cobra page is Ryan Overdrive. I have started to really enjoy when people leave little comments on the blogs. I never look at your draft decks. If you draft a deck of my cube, don't save it. That's for you. That's fine. If you enjoy it, great. If you leave a comment, though, I will I'll read it and respond if you have a thoughtful question for me. So those are avenues where you can reach me there. And then, of course, I'd appreciate anyone listening to my show, 180 MTG.
That's great. Well, again, thank you so much. This has been a joy for me. I'm so grateful that we get to share in this way, and hopefully other opportunities to connect in person, even if it's just to try wild flavors of ice cream sometime. But Ryan, really appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure being here, and I'm looking forward to some weird ice cream and some weirder cubes.